This is Duke University.
Hello, my name is Chris Tweed Kent, and I knew Ben through the soccer program, so that's how I first met him. And later on, he came to become a good friend of mine. Ben's first involvement with the team started 7 years ago when Coach John Kerr came to campus as the newly appointed coach. And Coach John Kerr was at this faculty rep meeting, and he met Ben. And in similar fashion to, I think, a lot of the stories you've heard here tonight, they hit it off right away. And before you knew it, he was coming to our home matches. He traveled it up to Boston College, Clemson, Wake Forest, number of different places with us. And as I got to know Ben, I started to spend a lot more time outside of soccer with him. So I'd go with lots of friends here from the track and field team as well as the soccer team. And I'd listen to his stories. And if you talk to any of us, I think people are always telling stories about Ben, whether he's there or not. And so I'd like to take the time just to tell you one of my favorite stories. He told me about his time when he first stepped onto Yale campus and when he had to register for classes. And so typically they would register for 4 classes. But Ben, of course, wanted to take 6. So he wrote the 6 classes down and handed it in. And of course, he was called down to the dean's office later that week. And he walked in, and the secretary explained to him, Ben, you're only allowed to take 4 classes here. Which classes don't you want to take? He said, I don't think you understand. I want to take all 6. He didn't quite understand. So after he proved his stubbornness to the secretary, he was then sent to the dean, who was much firmer and said, Ben, step into this room and don't come out until you've crossed 2 of those classes off the list. And so Ben said, sure. So he stepped into the room and he sat. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited. And after a considerable amount of time, the dean realized Ben wasn't joking. He wanted to take 6 classes. And so he went into the room, and that semester, Ben took 6 classes, and every subsequent semester from then on. So to me, it proves the point that Ben was both passionate and persistent, which are 2 of the qualities that I grew to love most about him. As you can see here, the Duke community already misses him. The soccer team misses him. We have camp right now, and he usually would come out to say hello to the campers and welcome them to Duke, and I certainly miss him. He was a legend.
I was struck by Scott Strickland's comment about the song that preceded him. And I do want to say that as someone who has really fought all of my life to be called a woman, at my age, I love having a song before me that refers to girls, so thank you. I'm Sue Waslick, and I've known Ben since he arrived at Duke. We were both colleagues in student affairs. I decided that Ben must have loved Mary Poppins. Mary proclaimed that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, and Ben certainly loved sugar and butter, particularly during his treatment times. He must have also admired Maria in The Sound of Music, because she sang, "When the dog bites and when the bee stings and when you're feeling bad, you should simply remember your favorite things and then you won't feel so bad." I guess this was Maria's definition of resilience and her way of coping with life's speed bumps. When our colleague, friend, and mentor, Ben Ward, was presented with the major speed bump of cancer over 3 years ago, my sense was that he actually followed this advice and turned to his favorite things, many of which seemed to start with the letter S: salmon, Seattle, shortbread cookies, strawberry ice cream, Strauss, and sports, like Duke soccer, Duke track and field, and the Durham Bulls. But mostly Ben turned to his friends, of which he had an abundance. And when he asked these friends to supply him with the salmon and the strawberry ice cream, well, his refrigerator and his freezer became filled to capacity and beyond. But the thing that sustained Ben the most during his 33 years at Duke, in sickness and in health, were the students, another S word. The students he met as a faculty in residence in Trent and the Arts House, the students he taught in his philosophy classes, the student athletes he met on various sports teams, and the students that he met through other students. And if we're being honest, Ben's closest friends were the Pitchforks. And it's so clear why these relationships were the most significant. Through the Pitchforks, Ben was able to combine his passion for music with his devotion to caring for and about and mentoring young people. What a wonderful gift that Ben and the Pitchforks have been to each other and to Duke. Ben, there are students from over 3 decades at Duke who have been influenced by your intellect, your wisdom, your heart, and your soul. They knew that you cared for and about them, and they cared for and about you. The mutual love and respect that has been felt and exchanged is unmatchable on this campus. Ben, it's clear that all of us already miss you, and we will continue to miss you for eternity. Your musical notes and your prints are all over this campus, Durham and beyond, and we're all better because of you. You've been an absolute gift to this place on so many levels, and we are all so grateful. I imagine that each and every time the Pitchforks sing, they hear your voice and literally sing your praises. I know I do. Before I sit, though, I would like to ask all the Pitchforks who are here to please stand, even those who may have been summoned to the dean's office for deviant behavior. And we'd like to just thank you and applaud you this evening on Ben's behalf. Thank you.
In my mind, I'm going to Carolina. Can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? And ain't it just like a friend of mine to hit me from behind? Yes, I'm going to Carolina in my mind. Karen, she's a silver sun. You best walk away and watch it shine. Watch her, watch the morning come. A silver tear appearing now. I'm crying, ain't I? Going to Carolina in my mind. Ain't no doubt in no one's mind that love's the finest thing around. Whisper something soft and kind. Hey, babe, the sky's on fire. I'm dying, and I'm gone to Carolina in my mind. In my mind, I'm going to Carolina. Can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? And ain't it just like a friend of mine to hit me from behind? Yes, I'm going to Carolina in my mind. Dark and silent late last night, I think I might have heard the highway calling. The geese in flight and dogs that bite. Signs that might be omens say I'm going, I'm going to Carolina in my mind. There's been a holy host of others standing round me, but still I'm on the dark side of the moon. And it seems like it goes on like this forever. You must forgive me if I'm up and gone to Carolina in my mind. 'Cause in my mind I'm going to Carolina. Can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? And ain't it just like a friend of mine to hit me from behind? Yes, I'm going to Carolina in my mind.
Carolina, really? Do you know how many recruits the last 4 years have said I'm going to Carolina? My name is Tom Walter. I'm the baseball coach at Wake Forest University. And I can assure you I'm not going to say anything original. All the speakers before me and after me are more eloquent than I. But that's what we coaches do, right? We regurgitate and pass it off as our own. So that's what I'll do here today. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody in attendance today for making the effort to be here. I know that means a lot to Ben. And there are many things about this day that I think Ben would enjoy and probably is enjoying somewhere. One, that it's Martin Luther King weekend, you know, his life being forever entwined with Dr. King. Two, that this happened during a Duke basketball game. I think that would please Ben very much. And lastly, and not least, that I'm wearing Duke blue. So my outfit today, this will be the last that Ben Ward sees of this outfit for sure. That I've been asked to speak here today is truly one of my life's great honors. And I want to publicly thank the Rosensteins and the Uphoffs for their dedication to Ben Ward over these past 4 years. It's been a miracle. And I know Ben was not much for thanks, and it was not verbally expressive when it came to thanks, but he appreciated you guys and loved you guys so very much, and he talked about you often. So I just wanted to publicly say that. Ben Ward, or Dr. Ward, or Professor Ward, or Papa Grande, or as my kids called him, Uncle Ben, had many great gifts. He was a genius, a gifted concert pianist, and a trusted teacher. Ben was also generous, compassionate, devoted, and loyal. He was a prankster, and he was a connector. Ben was also a fighter. One of my favorite memories of Ben was when he challenged one of our players to a weigh-off. And one of our players was battling an illness and had lost, 50 pounds in a short time, and Ben was obviously going through the same in his battle with chemotherapy. So Ben challenged our player to a weigh-off and organized this big event at the baseball stadium where Ben brought his entourage, and they were both going to step on a scale. And I made many mistakes in agreeing to this. One was letting Ben bring the scale. Two was not checking his pockets for rocks and other such paraphernalia. He must have had on 7 jackets and 4 pair of sweatpants because Ben wasn't going to lose. There was just no way Ben was going to lose that battle. And of course, Ben won by a pound. And their 2 lives and our lives were forever entwined, and I'm so grateful for that day. In the days leading up to Ben's passing, he had hundreds of visitors, callers, emailers, and well-wishers. All the people he touched throughout his amazing life came running in his hour of need. Every day in the hospital room was filled with people from all walks of life, from all parts of the country, and we all left a little closer, our hearts filled with a little more love, and even more admiration for the blessing that was Ben Ward. For those of you who couldn't make it, Ben understood. For one of Ben's greatest gifts was that he never took self-pity. He didn't believe in guilt. We would often talk about his cancer, and Ben would say to me, I don't understand people who get cancer and say, why me? I don't understand that. And he would follow that quickly by saying, why not me? But that was the quintessential Ben. When the rest of us mortals were seeing red, Ben was seeing black. The best part is that he didn't judge us for that. He just went to work getting us to open our minds to alternate possibilities. See, to Ben, there was no right and wrong. There was just self-discovery. But far and away, Ben's greatest gift was that he was engaged. And we've heard many people talk about this fact tonight. The rest of us go through life with one eye on our cell phone, thinking what's next. And you get into conversations with people, and you can see them literally checking their cell phone mid-conversation, and their eyes glaze over, and you know they're not listening to what you're saying. And that happens to us every day. When you got into a conversation with Ben, you got his 100% attention. In coaching world, we call that laser focus. Ben was focused on you and only you for that time. A 4-hour visit with Ben would go by in the blink of an eye, and when you left, you couldn't help but smile on your way out the door. Your spirits were lifted, your confidence at an all-time high. So as a tribute to Ben, I challenge each and every one of us in attendance here today to follow in his giant footsteps. Stop to smell the roses. Stop to contemplate. Stop and talk to strangers. And most importantly, be engaged in the lives of your loved ones. One of my favorite biblical quotes is, "To whom much is given, much is required." Ben lived by those words more than anybody I've ever met in my entire life. And most of us go through our lives with just a handful of remarkable moments. But every one of Ben Ward's days was a remarkable moment in somebody's life, somebody other than his own. So in conclusion, thank you, Ben. Because of you, I'm a little more of all the things that you were. And for that, I'm a better father, son, coach, person, and friend. Wherever you are, know that you are very much loved and very much missed. Till we meet again.
like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall and the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair, she broke your throne, and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. There was a time when you let me know what was going on below, but now you never show it to me, do ya? And remember when I moved in you, the holy dove was moving too, and every breath we drew was hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Thank you, all performers. This is UNC School of the Arts String Quartet and the Pitchforks and Out of the Blue for sharing your lavish sonic gifts with us. We appreciate it on an evening full of so many mixed emotions. We appreciate it, and Ben Ward would be very proud of you. Is anybody here wondering how on earth one man fit so much into one life? Is it just me, or is anybody else wondering that? So on behalf of the Department of Music and as current and longstanding faculty and residents through residential life and what's called HDRL now at Duke, I joined the chorus of the many who met, worked with, and deeply appreciated and loved our time with Professor Ward. I was a first-year student at Duke in 1983. I'm sorry, I was a freshman. That's what we used to call it when I was young, but they call it something different now. You know, I hope you'll forgive me indulging a little bit in a couple of autobiographical things, because I know this is about Ben Ward, but I want you all to sort of substitute your perspective into the eyes of this first-year student who will be me in this story. His first grade teacher was named Gladys Ward. His first composition teacher was named Robert Ward, who just passed away this past spring. But when I was a student in the dormitory called Trent Drive Hall on what's called North Campus, and it was my first time, I didn't really know many people, and I came to Duke as quite an oddball, a student who had a passion for the nourishment of 19th century piano music from Europe. And this wasn't happening a lot with black males that I knew. And you know, for that matter, it didn't happen that much with the white males I knew. But there it was in me, and I was always waiting for opportunities to express my enthusiasm about the kind of music I loved. But there's just not many occasions. Everybody else was listening to everything else. I'm exaggerating, but most people were. And so I'm a first year in this dorm, and one day I'm walking past this door, 2 doors down from my dorm door, and I hear some Chopin coming out of the door. And I kind of peek through the crack of the door, and there's this African-American male just laying it down. And I had heard a rumor that this guy was, I said, isn't this brother supposed to be a philosophy teacher? I mean, how is this happening? How can he play this well? And it was Benjamin Ward. He was my first faculty in residence. So I met him, and he told me that in September, and I'm holding this is my journal from 1983. Usually I would write things about people. So if you're from in the 80s, I probably wrote about you if you said something wrong about me. But anyway, usually I would write things, but he invited me to a concert in Baldwin Auditorium, Sunday, September 25th, 1983. And I didn't write anything. I just had to paste it in here. And it's full of all these scribblings of things that he played. He played an all Chopin concert. He played all the preludes of Chopin from memory. That's the first concert I attended at Duke University. Now I want to read the top of this program to you. It says, Duke University, the Office of Residential Life and the Department of Music present Benjamin Ward piano on September 25th, 1983. Already he's setting territories interdisciplinary, as crossing all kinds of boundaries. And this man who was in my dorm, who's also a professor, is also this incredible artist, this incredible thinker. And so I got to know him. Let's fast forward to September 25th, 2011. Ben Ward, I called him Professor Ward, already knew that he had been diagnosed with cancer and was recovering from a very aggressive treatment. But on September 25th, 2011, he held an incredible concert in Nelson Music Room, where he played, I would say, even more dynamically than I remembered what I heard when I was a freshman. This blows my mind. This is superhuman behavior to me. And I've seen him play with my fellow faculty in the music department. I've seen him play for occasions related to his position as faculty in residence. I've also seen him just simply be a great listener. Someone who will listen to you, as you've heard from many people, as if you are the pure focus. He was a highly observant person who taught us, beyond the subjects he taught in the classroom, he taught us how to be an observant and connected human being. And that is a lesson I will take with me for the rest of my life. I'm so glad to have gotten to witness and connect with this gentle giant. Thanks.
I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see. These painted faces fill the places I can't reach. Well, you know that I could use somebody. Yeah, you know that I could use somebody. Well, someone like you and all you know and how you speak. Well, countless lovers under cover of the street. Well, you know that I could use somebody. Yeah, you know that I could use somebody. Someone like you. Off in the night while you live it up, I'm off to sleep. I'm waging war to shake the poet and the beat. Well, I hope it's gonna make you notice. I just hope it's gonna make you notice. Someone like me. Someone like me. Someone like me. Somebody. Go let it out, 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 go let it out. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, whoa, whoa. Well, someone like you, somebody. Someone like you, somebody. Someone like you, somebody. Well, I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see.
Kurt and Carol Uphoff, thank you for today. The countless hours that you took putting today's program together is probably not measurable. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have two pieces I'd like to share with you this evening. The last piece are some notes of mine about Ben. The first piece is another attempt to try and describe this person that we spent the better part of a day talking about. This is a piece that Ben wrote and read at Renaissance Weekend in Hilton Head. It's entitled A Toast to America in honor of Bill and Hillary. In offering a toast to America tonight, I wish both to celebrate and to challenge her. We celebrate the American achievement, but the essence of this achievement does not lie in any particular result or state of affairs. It consists rather in the ongoing validation and renewal of a certain process, a process rooted in the fundamental presumption of inclusion rather than exclusion, a process that celebrates rather than tolerates diversity, and that sees it as a vital prerequisite for a truly free, strong, dynamic, and self-regulating community. A process that does not automatically, but requires our constant vigilance and even our active intervention if we are to be able to meet the challenge of emerging needs and new conditions. A process that in the end accepts the risk of change over the stultifying certainty of the status quo and the human tragedy of the missed opportunity. We celebrate the American achievement not by limiting our focus to the traditional indices of material prosperity, but rather by challenging ourselves to recapture and renew the very idea of America. That idea, at once impossible and inescapable, that we might yet come to see ourselves not principally as members of particular constituencies, but rather as participants in a common community of aspiration. Is it possible that we might in due course come to perceive the essential brittleness of an individual liberty that is shown of the civilizing context of community and mutuality? And is it possible that we might eventually wean ourselves from the false security of excessive reliance on the heavy and unsupple hand of government, and that we might come more fully to appreciate the fact that, though it may be in our time indeed have come to be necessary condition, government alone can never be a sufficient condition for that true human prosperity, which proceeds from the perception of each one of us as ultimately linked in a common chain of destiny. In the final analysis, the vital link between us as Americans, the essence of our American identity, lies not in commemorating a common past, but rather in keeping alive the prospect of a common future. And it is this fundamental task of preserving the future, a common future, that constitutes our highest callings as Americans. May we summon the vision and the courage once again to rise to that challenge by which we as Americans are perpetually charged to reconstitute and renew ourselves. Benjamin F. Ward, Duke University. In 1983, when my cousin Brian Schneiderman was a freshman at Duke, I mentioned to him that I was interested in renewing my interest in classical music. Later that semester, Brian introduced me to Ben Ward, who taught philosophy and was a resident advisor. In addition, Brian told me, and Ben does music. And so my saga with Ben began. In due course, Ben made it to our home for supper. He appreciated Debbie's cooking and became a regular at our table. In hindsight, I realized that it was necessary to tolerate me to get to the food. No one ever accused Ben of being a fool. Over the years, our relationship grew, and Ben introduced us to his friends, usually around dinner time at our home. Countless members of the Pitchforks, Ben's special family, joined our family table from time to time. And during one January visit, they serenaded my mother, Debbie's mother, and a friend's mother, all with January birthdays, followed, of course, with food. But times were not always joyful. Once the phone rang late at night. It was Ben. In a distressed voice, he explained that his mother had just died, and he wanted to come over and talk. In minutes, he was at our home, and Debbie and I more listened than talked as Ben worked his way through his mother's death with the help of his friends, Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates. When Ben's father died, we had a similar conversation. Ben, Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates did most of the talking. And again, we are honored to have Ben and his family in our home. One day, Ben asked Debbie to take him to a colonoscopy exam, and it was there that he told her that he was sure that he would be diagnosed with cancer. Ben asked if she and I would take care of him, and Debbie cried and responded that we would take care of him as best we could. Ben was clear that we would all do the best that we could, and there would be no more tears. Shortly after, Ben informed his dear friend Mary Siemens of his cancer. Mary made a few phone calls, and Ben's doctors were all lined up. And so began 4 long years of treatment and a heroic fight to the end. For several years, Ben had joined our family for Thanksgiving. This past Thanksgiving was different. Debbie and I both noticed that Ben's energy level was noticeably reduced. And on Saturday evening, Debbie began emailing Dr. Uronis about Ben's health. Several emails later, it was decided that Debbie would take Ben to see Dr. Uronis on Monday morning, December 2nd. I understand from Debbie that when Dr. Uronis saw Ben that morning, her comment was, "You don't look so good." And several lab tests later, Ben was admitted to the hospital. Debbie told me that later when they were alone in the room at the hospital, that Ben cried when it became clear that he would miss his last classes and his last concert. He was so close to completing his last obligation to his family. It may have been the only time in his life that Ben ever failed in something that he really wanted to do. The medical staff thought that they would lose Ben that Tuesday and Wednesday, but their efforts pulled him through and he rallied. Debbie, Sean Oswald, along with Carol and Kurt Uphoff, were constants at the hospital. 2 to 3 times a day, Kurt would send out emails to all of the Pitchforks, members of the track and field team, and soccer team. Students started showing up regularly in Ben's hospital room, day and night. The hospital staff let them come and go, regardless of the hour. Friday evening, December the 6th, about 6 p.m., I arrived at Ben's hospital room only to find it stuffed with 12 to 15 tuxedo-clad Pitchforks, serenading him with songs that they were going to sing at that night's Christmas concert. Ben was smiling faintly. Nursing staff and other patients were outside the door to Ben's room, enjoying the music. As it became time for the Pitchforks to leave for the concert, some had tears running down their cheeks. Others remarked as they looked at Ben lying in the bed that he had taught them well and that they were ready for the concert. They sang a final song and slowly drifted out of the room. One Pitchfork, Stefan Fertala, as he was leaving, noticed my iPad on the table, and he asked whose it was, and I told him it was mine. In a flash, he had my tablet set up so that Ben and I could listen to the concert. Ben and I were alone in the room listening. I was holding the tablet, and Ben would listen and drift in and out of sleep. At times, he faintly sang along with the Pitchfork. At times, almost imperceptibly, he lifted his hands as if to lead them. At 9:30, at the end of the concert, in the last song, the last stanza, clearly out of nowhere, Ben joined in to sing with the last line. The concert was over, and Ben drifted off to sleep. Early Saturday evening, Ben's students left reluctantly. Exams would begin on Tuesday. It was clear that he would not last long. Some of the Pitchforks and members of the track and field team remained, and from that point on, Ben was never left alone. The next day, Pitchfork alumni from across the country made it to Ben's room, some to stay a day, others to stay for 2 to 3 days. Kurt continued to send updates and to receive emails, reading them to Ben as they arrived. All of us, Ben's family, followed him personally or with our hearts to the Hawk Family Hospice Facility, where he died, with Debbie holding one hand and I the other, his beloved students surrounding him with hands on his limbs and his shoulders as he quit breathing. A magnificent life had come to an end. We read 3 psalms to comfort each other. All of Ben's family brightened his life, serenading him and accompanying him as far as we could. I'm compelled to mention a few members of the family. Dr. Willett, Ben's oncology radiologist, the IV team at the Duke Cancer Institute, and Margot O'Neill, Ben's PA. Dr. Hope Uronis and Debbie Rosenstein added a special quality, years to Ben's life. This they did with grace and dignity, giving all the rest a view of healthcare delivered with compassion, everyone singing together to the last song, the last stanza, and the last line.
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come out right. To be simple, the gift to be free. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. The gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to be free, the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to be simple, to be free, 'tis the gift to be free, to be free.
I wonder if it is possible that I am the person in this room whose life goes furthest back with Ben Ward. I haven't heard anyone speak anything that contradicts this possibility. Ben and I went to graduate school at the same place, and we went in the same year, and we got our PhDs in the same year. A university is a big place, and he didn't know who I was, but everybody knew who he was because he was the prodigy. He was the prodigy of philosophy. He was the person who knew Arabic. He was the person who had played with Rostropovich, can you imagine? He was the person who had played for Martin Luther King. It then happened that we got our first jobs after graduate school also at the same place, the same school where we had been students. I as an obscure young professor of English, he as the dean of one of the residential colleges, Nancy Andrews, dean of the Duke Medical School and most recently honored as Surfer Girl, was a freshman under his care. But what was interesting at that time is you saw how the person who could have made his claim to fame be that he was a prodigy, all of a sudden it was really about serving the talent of others and advancing their careers of others. Well, I knew a lot of people, and he knew a lot of people, and after a while he wasn't around anymore. And frankly, I didn't know where he had gone. You know, life was very full, these things happen. And year after year after year passed. In fact, 24 years passed after he left Yale. And then a strange thing happened. When I had accepted the presidency of Duke, a friend of mine did a very nice thing. He organized a party in New York City. He invited tons of my friends, and everybody talked in all kinds of lovely ways about the life I was leaving, which I appreciated, except that it was also kind of annoying because I was interested in getting on with my new life, about which I still knew ever so little. But it turned out that the person who hosted this party did the single most hospitable thing I've ever heard of anyone doing. late in the evening, when I thought the party was over, the door opened and in came a group of people. It was the Pitchforks of Duke University, who had been flown up to New York City to sing to the incoming president and win his heart. Do the Pitchforks still sing to the president's wife or spouse? Well, you had her at hello. And so they sang. I remember you said, I see some of you now, right? Okay. I remember a song you sang. You sang 29 Ways. Why did you drop that one? That's a wonderful song. And so there it was. But as I listened to the Pitchforks, I thought, oh, this new life is going to be great. But there was one funny thing about the Pitchforks. There was this one sort of older dude with them, you know? I'm looking at him, and he had this baseball hat on, and I'm thinking, what is with the older dude? But when I went up and got a little closer to the older dude, I recognized this was none other than the evolved version of Benjamin F. Ward, former dean of Berkeley College, Yale University, who had by this point been at Duke University for 24 years. That's a long time, right? And so, as I say, I knew him at one point, and I knew him at another point, and then, of course, when I came to Duke, I learned that everybody at Duke knew Ben Ward. Everybody knew him, and haven't we heard all these capacities? It's not that he didn't have his remarkable personal talents. Of course he did. But beyond that, there was a circle of care, and probably none of us knew all the things he cared about. I learned tonight, the urban ministries part tonight, 10,000 hours, that's a pretty amazing thing, you know. But I'll always associate him and this university mostly, you know, if I'd go to soccer games, he would be there. If I went to Durham Bowl games, I often saw him there, sometimes when he was very ill. And then, of course, there was the Pitchforks. And you know, it seems to me you really begin to understand something about universities the minute you understand what do a track team and an a cappella group have in common. 3 things. They're made up of young people, 1. 2, you're not going to be on them unless you have some talent. And 3, it's about learning to submerge and transcend your talent in what a group can achieve as a group. That's it seems to me where Ben really found his genius and the gift he specifically gave this place. I'm going to mention one last story, and actually Anthony Kelly, I thought I was going to have this amazingly be the 16th speaker and no one would yet have mentioned it, but Anthony came close. How many of you were at the concert in the Nelson Music Room when Ben, who had already been at death's door, boy, I was, you know, he had, for all he knows, he would have died by that point, but he recovered enough to practice enough to give a concert, and there he was. And also the Ciampi Quartet, if you'll remember, played on that night, and they played the amazing Beethoven String Quartet that has a piece of writing over the music, and let's see if my German is good enough to do it. Heiliger Gedanksang einer Genesende, sacred song of gratitude from a recovered person, a convalescent. And if you remember, in the middle of that music, there's another piece of writing by Beethoven, Neue Kraft fühlend. This is translated as with renewed strength, but it's something more like with full of the sense of renewed power. And you went to that thing, and there you saw it, the person who looked death in the face, who came back from that experience to bring his own power to the fullest, to rejoice in the fullness of that power. And yet what I think everyone will remember about that evening is, extraordinary as it was for Ben to be the focus of our attention in that way, the Pitchforks sang first. There's a person here who sang Carolina on that time. I saw you before. And at the end, the Ciampi Quartet played. And once again, it was all about the whole story of Ben. I take that story to be this simple. It's all about you can't play unless you bring something, unless you bring some talent with renewed strength. And yet at the same time, what you get to enter by having that talent is an experience far more than anything you could have brought, and by which your life is infinitely renewed. My gratitude on the part of this university for its beloved faculty member and colleague, Ben Ward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Neil Christian. I'm the current president of the Duke Pitchforks. Thank you so much for being here. And for our last song, it's a very special song, one of Ben's favorites, and actually I think is arranged by our very own Papa Grande, or is it Bob? Well, Ben loved it. And so for this last song, it'd be an honor to invite all the 50-some alumni from the Pitchforks to come up with us and sing this last song in Ben's honor. So I invite all of the former Pitchforks, and actually still current Pitchforks per usual, up to the front.
Dear old Duke, thy name we sing. To thee our voices raise. To thee our anthems ring. In everlasting grace. And lo, on life's broad sea, our fates may far us bear. We'll ever turn to thee, our alma mater dear.
Yes, yeah. It's not on the program because I had to leave it off so you wouldn't know about it.
Robert and Debbie, I think throughout the evening we expressed how many times you've been literally a life force for Ben. You've kept him around and kept him in full spirits for the last 4 years, and it's something that we cannot express enough gratitude towards. And so it only makes sense to finally have you guys become part of the Pitchforks family. And so we have one last song that I think every member of the Pitchforks knows. So don't worry if you don't know it completely, but try your best to sing along now that you're part of the family, okay?
That's too bad.